The Women's Hall of Fame was thrilling because I look at myself and I've always looked at the honorees and they're amazing. First woman pilot in Colorado, the first woman astronaut, Miss America who lived a life recovering from incest. My goodness, I never did anything like that. And I say to myself, why me? And then I look at it and say, I am that typical volunteer. I just haven't been doing it for a long time.
She has made volunteerism so respected and so popular and so worthy.
You would be hard-pressed to find a nonprofit organization in Denver that hasn't interacted with Arlene Hirschfeld.
She cares deeply about the causes she gets involved in.
Gosh, she was everywhere over the years, and you would go to things and you say, Arlene did that one too?
As strong and enduring as the Rocky Mountains they stood beside, as visionary as the views of the Grand Plains they looked across, the women inducted into the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame are trailblazers whose work has improved and enriched our lives. They are teachers, scientists, ranchers, leaders in business, education, religion, and the arts. Women who have been recognized for their many contributions to our state, our country, and the world. I'm Renelda Muse, and these are the stories of great Colorado women.
Arlene has built a kind of community that encompasses a spectrum of women and women's voices that I haven't seen anyone else accomplish.
She empowers people and validates them to do their very best.
She has a passion for bringing women together who will create change.
But more importantly, she's a champion for women and children.
And she cares about them in ways that are not just about her fulfillment, but the fulfillment of the mission of those organizations and causes.
Arlene's parents were role models for her.
My parents were both volunteers and very involved in the community.
And they were big contributors to the health and welfare of the Jewish community and the secular community. And so Arlene took her lesson from them.
Since I've been in preschool, helping people, myself included, be the best that we can be.
She was a candy striper, and then she went on to become head girl at George Washington High School.
It was a great opportunity in that I got to be involved in helping form some of the organizations that were there. And in my case, it was Student Council.
And from there, she just rose in the ranks of volunteerism.
Since the early 80s, she's been involved in over 40 organizations and has received over 35 awards.
People say to me often, how do you do all that you do? You're busy all the time. I see you out and doing all these things. And I say to people, we can do it all, just not at the same time. We have chapters in our lives.
She brings out the best in people. She's brought out, I think, the best in me. She's brought out the best in our family.
I am very fortunate to have a husband who really supports everything I do. We're in sync about what commitments we're going to take on, what we're going to do. How does it fit in with our family and our lives? Ourselves as a couple, our children, and now our precious grandchildren.
Barry is just a partner that has been by her side through thick and thin, and I know that Arlene feels she couldn't do nearly half the things she does without Barry's support.
Barry and Arlene have helped create each other. They are so intricately intertwined as two people that they have added so powerfully to who each other are.
I met Barry. I remember, probably knew him before, but I probably was about 12 years old.
And I was very good friends with her brother, but we had no designs on each other. And that came really much later.
I was a senior in high school and needed to invite a date to a party.
When I was in my early years of college, I was home for spring vacation and I got a call from Arlene.
And I was in between boyfriends. And I hadn't seen Barry in 2 years, but he was a family friend.
She said, would you take me? And I said, sure, I'd be happy to take you.
Well, goodness, he walked in, I thought, wow, he's grown up, he is really cute. So we sort of started a romance. And then I was going off to the University of Michigan, thinking I would meet some sophisticated Eastern person. Well, what can I say? I came back and married Barry.
You know, it's something that neither one of us expected.
But we've been married 51 years now. And it's pretty great.
So when Arlene and I first got married, Arlene wanted to be a school teacher, so she applied to Denver Public Schools, and she landed a job with Abraham Lincoln High School.
Being an English teacher, the students really open up to you. They write their compositions. They say all kinds of things. You're a safe person. I never thought about myself as somebody that was sort of an advisor or a confidant.
And she had a way of elevating them and giving them an outlook to where they could be all that they could be.
And when our older son was born, I retired from teaching. I always knew I would do a couple of things. One has always been the Jewish Federation, which is now called Jewish Colorado. But being a Jew, we need to take care of our community as well as the secular community.
Arlene and I worked to develop a program here in Denver called Harvard Women's Studies and Religion Program. And we brought speakers from Harvard to speak with women.
This divinity school is concerned about 30 religions that they study, world peace, using religion for good to encourage brotherhood. And I thought, this is something I don't know about, and I want to learn about it and see how it impacts things.
A light bulb went off for Arlene that if we want to change the roles of women in society, we need to go back to the roots. We need to look at the foundations, and those are rooted in religion. Women constitute the majority of practitioners of every religion in the United States.
I had never thought about our religious traditions and how they influence what our roles are over the centuries since the beginning of time.
That's where our ideas of what makes a good man and what makes a good woman come from. And she's brought together a group of women who felt they could really benefit from the knowledge that our scholars bring about women across the world's religions.
And they would talk to us about their work. And it energized women to no end.
Arlene understood that bringing scholars and activists together could create a unique alchemy. But the scholars rarely get that kind of audience.
Part of the mission is also to get that work out into community, people like us who just live our lives every day, that we need to know about this.
Arlene has brought such insight and enthusiasm to the Women's Studies and Religion program.
And then in about '94, I was asked to be on the Dean's Council for the Harvard Divinity School.
So the Divinity School has benefited really enormously from her attachment with us.
And it's really thrilling to see the leveraging of that amazing program here in this country and around the world.
Arlene has been involved with our program for about 30 years. She was one of the first supporters to really appreciate that the role of women in religion was foundational to understanding how women could become leaders in today's society.
Women are now out in the marketplace. They're in the religious traditions. They're building the churches, the schools, the temples, whatever they're doing. And how has this evolved?
Arlene has got a sixth sense of, where can she be most useful? And so when I first became governor, the governor's mansion was in need of some upkeep and repair.
This is where we greet the Summit of the Eight group that came. We meet community people. We meet businesses that want to come to Colorado, nonprofits. It needs to be tended to and taken care of. It's a treasure.
So she wanted to get involved with the preservation fund and really help bring a lot of new people in to make donations to help us, keeping the mansion look mansionable.
On the other side is the Denver Art Museum, and it is the most incredible place ever. I've been involved since 1973.
Arlene was very instrumental in the fundraising campaign for the Hamilton building at the Denver Art Museum. She helped raise well over $100 million in order to get that project off the ground.
I remember so fondly probably spending 12 years on the board of the Denver Art Museum with Arlene.
I love it because it brings such pleasure to people. And there's so much evidence, so much research on the importance of the arts in educating kids, their problem-solving skills, their observation skills. It goes on and on.
She was a great help in helping us create Culture House, which was a young professional support organization for the museum, get young people involved in the affairs of the museum.
We have a very dedicated, incredible education department at the Denver Art Museum. And you see these kids, we have thousands come a year to the Denver Art Museum.
It was a tremendous success, and she would cajole her two sons into, participating, giving feedback. They were, I think, a continuous but rotating focus group.
Arlene is a community builder, and I can't stress that strongly enough. Arlene models a type of leadership that is not focused on her as an individual, but rather is about capacity building in women at every conceivable level.
There's virtually no organization that's been untouched by Arlene.
I think it was her involvement in the Junior League of Denver, where she learned how to give back in an important way.
I thought that I knew what a volunteer was. I mean, you show up and you do your work, but the Junior League, it dedicates itself to teaching people to be what you'd call a professional volunteer. There are all kinds of classes in conflict management, running meetings, dealing with change.
She learned skills. She learned how to get from point A to point B in a very efficient and effective way.
Through all the experiences in the league and seeing the community, I thought, wow, there is so much to do and I want to be part of that.
Arlene was the first Jewish president of the Junior League. And I think for her, it was a systems change. It was a way that she really made a difference for other women to follow her.
She cheered us on. You never failed Arlene. She brought the best out in people, and that was the part that was always fun about Arlene.
I love working with people on behalf of the community and being part of a team.
Arlene raised the bar for the Junior League on what kind of projects they could do, what kind of performance a volunteer had to have, because volunteer often means amateur, but not after Arlene was with us. It meant you were a professional volunteer.
I think if Arlene were born maybe 20 years later, she'd probably be running a large corporation.
She has set the standard, truly, when it comes to community service.
She also is savvy enough to understand that you can be as creative as you want to be, but unless you have the resources, you really can't accomplish that much.
The Junior League gave me the opportunity to risk. They asked me to do jobs that I never thought of doing. One of them was fundraising. And I never thought of myself as a fundraiser. Now that seems to be what I spend a lot of my time doing.
She also taught me that fundraising is really friend raising, and to build relationships is one of the most important things that you can do in the nonprofit world.
When you look around at projects or people, you see reflections of Arlene's legacy because she connected them to resources, she encouraged them, she set an example for them.
She has reinforced the fact that in order to really build institutions and make changes, we need to raise the resources that it takes to support those.
I love to go into fundraising asks with her because she could meet with someone and she could convince them to suggest the amount that they should give.
In our 51 years together, there have certainly been some challenging times.
I remember being at a Junior League meeting when I got a phone call that my mother was in the hospital and they thought I had lung cancer. Well, my mother and I were like glue. In a period of 3 years in my family, we had 5 deaths.
And her mother died at an early age. She died of lung cancer. So those really impacted Arlene.
Just to wake up in a day where no one was ill and there was not a problem, because we'd never had this. That was really hard.
She's always said that one can do everything, just not all at the same time.
We've all been caught by saying yes too many times. And I've learned from that if you don't really have the time to do it and you can't do a good job, don't do it.
Arlene knows everybody.
She's a great connector. She sees someone who has a skill set and she thinks of someone else who might be good for this person to be in contact with, and she sets up those relationships.
She probably has, I think, perhaps the best network of people, not just in Colorado, but around the country, of anyone I've ever met. And she uses that network all the time to do good things for Denver and for Colorado.
And so there's a lesson to be learned about the power of networks and the power of influence, and not just the power, but taking the time to connect people with each other, with causes, with opportunities that really end up building and transforming community.
She has made volunteerism so respected and so worthy that people feel lifted up by identifying with Arlene.
She always lifts up the other person. She never takes credit herself for what she does, but she always makes others feel that they have made a difference.
I don't ever remember Arlene being rude, thoughtless, unkind, any of those things. She always made you feel like you were the princess on the planet, and she was just there to shine the spotlight on you.
I've never seen her make a disparaging comment to anyone. I've never seen her in a bad mood. She always takes the high road. She's optimistic. She finds the joy in the ordinary, and it's always a pleasure to be in her company.
She's really about building bridges and strengthening the community through relationships.
I like to listen to people's thoughts, and I like to find out how they came to where they were and the path, and I like to hear their pearls of wisdom from whatever experience they have.
She looks at people's gifts and she empowers them to utilize their gifts in the best way possible.
She has been an exceptional role model for many younger women coming along.
I remember being at an annual conference for Junior League, and a woman by the name of Natasha Josefowicz spoke, and she said, I think about my experience in volunteering and in my life and in learning. My right hand is being held by somebody who knows more than me, and I am learning. My left hand is being held by somebody who knows less than I do, and I'm teaching. I've always thought about that, and I've often talked about it because I think it really is so productive.
Arlene, despite all the seriousness of her causes, has a wonderful sense of humor. The other day, for instance, we are both getting ready for this day of interviewing, right? So we happen to meet at the beauty shop, and we have exactly the same outfits on. I said, oh, you got the message today. And it's kind of like that was just a big girls' giggle time for us.
We laughed a lot. We laughed an awful lot. And you can do good work when you're laughing.
She knows that if it's not fun to work together, we'll all give up and go home and crawl under a rock. Nobody ever wants to do that after a meeting with Arlene. They want to do more and do it better and work harder because they know that they're going to be appreciated, be loved and nurtured by someone who really understands the importance of what they're doing.
Arlene was sort of like a tonic. Wherever she was leading, she made you feel good about what you were doing. She made you want to rise to the bar that she expected. And sometimes I would look at her and think, how can I possibly be your mentor when I learned so much from you?
She brings a sparkle and a joy and a passion to everything she does.
She exudes such style and grace and sophistication.
She dresses to the nines. I've never seen anybody dress quite as, I've never seen her in blue jeans, let's put it that way.
If you go to the market and you happen to run into her, you're there in your jeans and your sweatshirt. Not Arlene. She always looks like she stepped right off the front of some magazine.
She's everywhere. And yet she still finds the time to pick up the phone and support and encourage, whether it's the day after a nonprofit gala that you produce to tell you how great it was, or when an article runs in the newspaper. She's a cheerleader. She's really a cheerleader for causes, but also for people, and particularly for women in our community who are trying to do more.
She raises people to a higher level, and she made me believe that I could do things I probably never thought that I could.
Arlene can help them see how they can connect and how they can contribute, and what the power is of women coming together across all the things that we might think separate us.
I mean, she was just always behind the scenes, doesn't want her recognition or fingerprints anywhere.
It's the person that delivers Meals on Wheels every week. It's the PTA mother who's there doing all the things at the schools. It's the people at whatever religious tradition you're in doing that make things tick. They don't always get recognized and singled out. They're in the trenches, and they often don't get the recognition. I know they get a satisfaction, we all do from what we do, and that's gift enough, we don't need it, but it enriches our life. And I just feel like I'm a representative of that very, very important group.
Arlene is a master doer. Give her a job, give her an assignment, and it's done to perfection.
If you gave her a job, get out of the way. She's going to get it done.
But Arlene has that ability to work behind the scenes and enhance whatever the organization is trying to accomplish.
The time she devotes to each of her organizations that she's involved in and her obvious preparation she does in advance of every meeting, it's really remarkable.
I think the Women's Foundation is simply an example of how she gets in there with more than money.
The Women's Foundation was trying to start, and they came to us and asked us to be a founding member.
Arlene was president of the Junior League of Denver at that time.
We did our due diligence, and it was right on to our mission, helping women get off of welfare and be able to take care of themselves.
Arlene did not just say, okay, the Junior League is on board. She came in and she worked. And some of the people that had only seen her and didn't know her, they just couldn't believe how much she became a workhorse. You know, she's a very glamorous woman and she's very giving, but you kind of think the nitty-gritty might be below her. Oh, heavens no.
We know there's hard work to change this world. We know there are dire needs. Arlene isn't afraid to face the very strenuous, arduous issues that we need to face in order to come to terms with the change that's required to bring women into a just role in this world.
She's been the person that I go to when I have a really hard decision to make, when it's an unpopular decision, when it's a decision that you hope you never have to make.
Or ask the hard questions that nobody else would ask. She was very good at speaking truth to power.
She had a fundraiser for me when I was running for the U.S. Senate. She didn't do this very often. And she asked, you know, she was tough, asking for the money right there, people having dinner in her house. But the toughest part was before she supported me, she interviewed me about my feelings and my opinions about Israel. And those were not easy questions. She, you know, had certain standards that people that she was going to support had to have.
Arlene always balanced her family responsibilities with her nonprofit responsibilities, and she knew her priorities. Her priorities were that her family came first and her volunteer activities came second, even though they were such an integral part of her life.
Our children grew up together. She was the most incredible mother. I know that she's been inducted because she was so outstanding in her philanthropic work and her advocacy, but rearing children is the most important job that we do.
My volunteer work was always around their schedules so that I was home and that I was with them and that it did not interfere with my family life.
The kids that we've raised have turned out so beautifully, but everybody's kids are perfect in their parents' eyes.
I guarantee you she would say her greatest accomplishment is her two sons.
I don't know of a family that has a stronger ethic, a stronger commitment to their community, and a stronger camaraderie amongst themselves.
When I think of the things that stand out that I just loved the most was being president of the parent council at Grayland Country Day School. And then at Manual High School, I was co-president of that parent council where my kids went to school.
I remember a time on the Grayland board where we were dealing with a critical issue. It had to do with a personnel issue. And we knew we had to make a difficult decision. And everybody looked to Arlene about how she thought this problem should be approached. I was really struck by that at the time, that how much respect she had from the group and how much her judgment on this issue really came to bear and was such an intelligent way to approach the solution.
She was born to lead, and she does a wonderful job.
And people would ask what was her greatest accomplishment. And the answer was always the example she set for others by being herself.
It's wonderful to be honored for leadership, but the most important role that we play is to bring up grounded, dynamic, wonderful children. And Arlene has two of the finest sons I have ever met, and they will continue her legacy of giving.
She gives of herself for the benefit of others and never seeks anything in return.
We're just one person, but we are one person. And a voice is a huge asset to anything that you're doing, and we all have one.
We all have opportunities to give back to our community in different ways. Some have immense treasure, some have immense time, some have immense talent, or a combination. And Arlene has all of that, but she also really takes the time and energy to connect people.
I often mentally in my mind divide people into those who bring energy into your life and those who take energy away, and Arlene is definitely on the former side.
Follow your heart, follow your passion. Passion is what gets everything going. It starts organizations, it sustains them. And always do what feels good to you and put your energies there. But always have a barometer looking at yourself and evaluating your time, because it's important. I don't care what you're doing. It is very important. And you enjoy the success for a few minutes, and then you look at how can I make it better.